This month, 2 patients were transferred from a local care home to Abbotsford Regional Hospital. Both were suffering from medical emergencies, which appeared suspicious, and one of the 2 later died. Abbotsford police say detectives are now working with staff at the Menno Care home to try and determine what happened to those 2 individuals.
This incident is complex. It's an investigation that involves a lot of medical-related data to determine what led up to the patient's death in this case. What I can say is the Menno home themselves have been fully cooperating with police throughout the investigation. There's ongoing communication with them, and we don't have any concerns there.
In a statement, Menno Home says it's deeply concerned about what happened to 2 of its residents and that they are cooperating with police. The RCMP are asking for help as they investigate a fatal collision between a motorcycle and semi-truck. Police say the black Kenworth semi collided with a black Harley-Davidson motorcycle on Highway 97 near Naver Creek Road. Mounties say the motorcyclist, a 42-year-old man, has died, and the semi-truck driver, a 38-year-old man from Aldergrove, has been arrested for impaired driving. Mounties say the crash occurred at 12:34 this morning. Police are asking anyone with information to reach out to them. And then BC's police watchdog says 3 people are dead after an overnight incident in Maple Ridge. The Independent Investigations Office of BC says RCMP reported that 2 people were dead before police arrived and 1 person subsequently died of what appeared to be a self-inflicted injury. And we'll bring you more on this as we get more information this afternoon. We're also continuing to follow the situation at the Red Chris mine. Rescue efforts are underway as 3 workers remain trapped underground. The operator of the mine says the workers are behind a wall of debris between 20 and 30 meters long and 7 to 8 meters high. Yesterday, Premier David Eby said 2 of the workers are from BC and 1 from Ontario, but High Tech Drilling, the employer of the trapped workers, now tells CBC News that 1 is from BC, 1 is from Manitoba, and 1 is from Ontario. And CBC's Callie McTavish also brings us the latest.
It's surprisingly quiet at the entrance gate to the Red Chris mine. No unusual activity to indicate the rescue operation happening underground. People at the gas station in Iskut say all they know about the incident they heard on the news. The mine is located on Tahltan territory. Truck drivers waiting to bring their materials up say so far the company has been tight-lipped. A source with direct knowledge of the rescue operation told CBC there was an initial incident that happened Tuesday evening that forced the workers to seek refuge further into the mine. The 3 workers immediately went to a refuge station equipped with water, food, and air, enough to sustain 16 people for 3 days. A second collapse of earth shortly after severed communication lines. Newmont, the mine's major shareholder, confirmed this but would not reveal their names to respect their privacy and that of their families.
Newmont Corp says specialized drones have been sent in to assess the geotechnical conditions underground. It says the location the 3 workers are in is believed to be stable and well ventilated. You can continue to follow that story on our website, cbc.ca/BC. And that's what we have for you so far. I'm Benit Brach. Stay with us. BC Today is coming up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. An Ontario judge has been laying out her decisions in the sexual assault trial of 5 former hockey players. This has been a very high-profile case that put the spotlight on hockey culture, and we're asking, what impact has the case had on how we discuss hockey culture in Canada? Plus, it is National Drowning Prevention Week. Okanagan Lake and the Fraser River are the highest risk bodies of waters in BC. We're asking what's needed to prevent drownings in BC's waters and on the coast. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Now, before we begin, I just want to raise that this discussion and coverage of the hockey trial court proceedings include details of alleged sexual assault, which may be disturbing and may affect those who experience sexual violence or know someone who has. Help is available through Victim Link BC. They can be reached at 1-800-563-0808. That's toll-free 24/7. Now, today, the judge is delivering her decisions in the London sexual assault trial of 5 players with Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey Team. And verdicts are coming out just now. 4 of the 5 former Hockey Canada players have been found not guilty of sexual assault. And we now know that all 5 have been found not guilty. So far, we know Carter Hart, Alex Formanton, Calfoot, and Dylan Dubé found not guilty, and the 5th as well. We're still waiting for more details on that, but Michael McLeod, this just in, has also been found not guilty of sexual assault. Now, the former players were accused of sexually assaulting a woman known as EM due to a standard publication ban in a hotel room in London, Ontario in June 2018. And at issue in this trial was whether sexual touching was consensual. And today, Ontario Superior Court Justice Maria Carossia spent hours going through her reasons for the decision. This morning, she began by stating she didn't find the evidence from the complainant to be, quote, credible or reliable. She said the Crown did not prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And this is breaking news now. The 5 former Hockey Canada players have been found not guilty of sexual assault. Over the course of the years, as this story has broken and was brought into the spotlight, it also brought to the fore the broader issue of hockey culture. And Christy Allain has extensively studied men's hockey and the culture around it. She's an associate professor of sociology at St. Thomas University, and she says this case is bigger than today's verdict.
I think for me, I think in the initial reporting of this case was really exciting is that we've seen allegations of sexual abuse in myriad forms linked to men's hockey culture in Canada for generations. I think what was unique and is important that we not lose sight of in this case is that this was the first time we saw people move from talking about bad actors, bad actions, and started to really look at the culture of men's hockey in the country and ask for deeper changes. And so, in light of the verdict today, we have to ask, we've had 7 years since EM launched her complaint against the World Junior Hockey team and launched complaints with Hockey Canada. They've had 7 years to address chronic problems in their system. We've had 3 years since this has become public, and there's been a real push. I think now people want to know what's happened. People are really upset and angry about these allegations. This is a sport that's meant to represent the country and the nation, and we should always be asking if it's doing that in the best way possible. And I think in light of what's come forward, it was always, these allegations were always bigger than the verdict today. And I think we need to think about what kind of hockey culture we want to see and if we're taking the steps to get there. And I'm not sure that we are.
We are taking your calls on this. What impact has this case, the trial of 5 former Hockey Canada players, had on hockey culture in Canada? What are the conversations that have been had because of it? And what are those deeper changes that need to be made within hockey and its culture, as you heard from Professor Allain there? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday at cbc.ca. My guest today is Taylor McKee. He's an assistant professor of sport management at Brock University, and he specializes in masculinity and violence in hockey. Thanks so much for being with us, Taylor.
Thanks so much for having me.
So the news has broken now that the 5 former Hockey Canada players have been found not guilty in sexual assault. Lots of reaction to come on this, and certainly a very long and drawn out case, first made public about 3 years ago. What's your initial reaction to what we're seeing today?
My initial reaction is trepidation regarding, with larger implications on this verdict. I would hope that people don't draw conclusions about this being some sort of exoneration of hockey culture.
We are having trouble connecting with our guest Taylor McKee. It sounds like he's on cell phone there, and the connection is just not good enough to be able to hear what he has to say. But again, we'd love to hear from you and take your calls on this, asking you, beyond today's verdict, what are the impacts of this sex assault trial on the culture and the conversation around hockey. And our numbers, again, are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And you can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And Supreme Court Justice in Ontario, Maria Carosia, has been giving lengthy reasons for her rulings. This was an 8-week trial that wrapped in mid-June. And the accused were Carter Hart, Alex Formanton, Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, and Michael McLeod. They all pleaded not guilty. And the case centered on a woman known in court due to a standard publication ban as EM. Who testified she was sexually assaulted over several hours in a London hotel in June 2018. And breaking news this hour is that the 5 have been found not guilty. And as we take your calls here and try to reconnect with Taylor McKee, asking you again, in broader terms, what has been the impact of this case on the discussion around hockey? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or email bctoday@cbc.ca. Right now on Newsnet, CBC is speaking with Laura Robinson, investigative sports journalist, and let's see if we can connect with that interview.
The overflow rooms, there were 2 overflow rooms, and generally there's the same kind of tension in the hallways. There were a couple of breaks, and people are very tight. Some people are very tight-lipped, so you can't really tell, whose so-called side are they on. You just know that there's a great deal of tension here, and there's perhaps in many, many people's eyes, this was a fait accompli decision, but that doesn't mean that they are not continuing to support EM. I think we saw that this morning with so many people out at the front of the courthouse. I believe 15 women's organizations were here this morning.
And I just want to say that the 5 are free to go. The judge says that the 5 they've been acquitted, they've been found not guilty, so the 5 are free to go, and that the Crown has 30 days to file a notice of appeal. So that's just information that happened just seconds ago. What's your take on the judge's ruling regarding EM's credibility, especially in the context of sexual assault trials?
Well, it's very difficult. When people are very drunk, whether it's a complainant or the defense, and in this case, all of them were very drunk, it's also 7 years later. And I have to say, there was a time in cross-examination of EM where Daniel Brown said, "Who's to blame? Who's to blame?" And I have to say that we have to put some of the blame on the London Police Services, who, as far as I can see, didn't do the kind of thorough investigation that should have been done. They got the video from Jack's Bar. They never looked at it. They never, if you go to Jack's Bar, you see that people get table service, people get service when they're dancing. So the fact that we didn't see EM getting drinks bought by the players at the bar. It doesn't mean that the police never investigated to that level, and that was very disappointing in my eyes. The other thing is, who's to blame? I think we also have to look at Hockey Canada. We're ready to just let this go, not even let the defendants know that they settled a civil case on their behalf, and nothing would have changed if that was the case. And I think in many ways we have to say that EM was also failed by a system that was supposed to be there to listen and doesn't seem to be listening very well. Of course, memories fade over 7 years. And so in terms of the credibility, it's understandable that someone who has been traumatized would make mistakes in their evidence, and it's also understandable that so would the hockey players not remember correctly either. So it's a very complex and very harsh situation here now, I would say.
That is Laura Robinson, an investigative sports journalist. And again, all 5 former Hockey Canada players have been found not guilty of all charges in this sexual assault trial. And she mentioned there the civil suit that also involved Hockey Canada settling, and that does go back to a few years ago. And after that, this trial now that started several weeks ago. And now we have today's verdict and today's decision from the Ontario Superior Court Justice. We do have Taylor McKee now, who's an assistant professor of sport management at Brock University. Hi, Taylor. Thanks for your patience here.
Hi, so sorry about the earlier miscommunication there.
Thank you. Your connection is much, much better. I appreciate it. And so we have the verdict today. So that's the legal process. What do you think we should take from that when it comes to hockey as a sport?
I think we should be really cautious about any broad statements about this being an exoneration of hockey culture in general, as an example. I mean, there are very specific facts, which Ms. Robinson just mentioned there. I mean, in her statements, this case had specific failings, specific faults, specific problems, that being of time and distance. But in terms of the larger commentary on hockey culture, the things we learned from this trial, the things that are going to be difficult to unhear, those all are on the public record now. That's all out in the open. Things that we agreed on, both sides would agree on, occurred here. So again, hockey culture itself is by no means exonerated, I think. And that's why heading into this trial, I think putting too much weight on is this a hockey culture on trial moment was, I think, a mistake if we did that, because we don't want this to see this is a very specific case with very specific facts. The culture produced this situation and is going to produce others. So we need to correct this. And this is by no means saying, well, see, we knew it, nothing is wrong, and we can just move on with our lives.
What are the ongoing issues still in the culture of hockey?
I think one of the largest ones that this case certainly drew into attention is that of a culture of secrecy. And you saw it in sort of the ways in which witnesses were called here, in terms of who was called to testify and who was called as a witness for the prosecution. I mean, there is a large culture of not wanting to implicate others in what are horrific acts sometimes, or sometimes can be even in criminal acts in some situations. Obviously, it wasn't deemed in this case. Mm-hmm. But you have this culture of secrecy built through the bonds of sportsmanship and friendship and brotherhood, or any word you want to use here. That's fine and dandy. But in this case here, we have seen a culture of secrecy similar to that of an omerta, an organized crime, where people are unwilling to just bring things to light for fear of other people implicating them in actions.
Now, we mentioned the civil trial and the settlement pursued by Hockey Canada there. There have been calls for change. There was a change in leadership as well, with Catherine Henderson taking over as president and CEO. A new board of directors was also named. Do you think there is enough change that is being pursued at the leadership level?
I mean, I would hope so. That said, I mean, what we learned about the leadership of Hockey Canada in the aftermath of this case being brought into the public light, because as was mentioned earlier, I mean, this case was essentially dismissed and buried at one point by both not just Hockey Canada, but also the London police. I think when it re-emerged and the sort of facts of the case were brought forth to Hockey Canada, the response to that demonstrated a failure in leadership. The response, the seemingly almost indignant response that Hockey Canada gave, whether it was talking in front of the House of Commons or talking to Canadians in general. The notion that why are we being singled out for these transgressions when other NSOs are left slide. What we'd like to see, and this is how we will notice if Hockey Canada's leadership has truly changed, moving forward, no notes of celebration here, no notes of relief. This is a sobering time of self-reflection still. And what I want to hear from Hockey Canada, I'm sure other Canadians are the same, I would like to hear from them to say, give us the highest possible standards, set the highest bar, and we are going to exceed it moving forward. Not we are going to comply to the regulations and we'll do what we're told. I want them to say we're going to be a leader on this issue. And that's something that I just did not see in those summers. It was a lot of almost complaining about, well, why are we having to go through all of this? And we did everything we thought was right. Clearly something is wrong here. And I don't think anybody who saw the testimony or heard, seen what's been said, or looked at the testimony from any of the other various trials in sexual assault and hockey players that have gone on over the past decade, would say things are perfect as such. But I want leadership from Hockey Canada. I want strong statements to say we are going to have the highest standards and we're going to exceed them.
Do you expect a statement in light of this verdict?
I do, because, again, they have an external discipline process that theoretically could continue as well. The NHL does as well. They have another investigation that, this is a rather confusing part of this, is that they have their own sort of disciplinary process that they said is not even complete yet. They already started this process when they had prohibited all players who played on that team from representing Canada for I believe it was the time of a year. So it's possible they're going to continue with their own disciplinary process. I would hesitate to suggest that anyone knows for certain what the results of that would be, but you're going to have both a Hockey Canada and, I think, NHL statement, I would think, approaching very, very quickly.
My guest right now is Taylor McKee, who is an assistant professor of sport management at Brock University. And again, breaking news this half hour, all 5 former Hockey Canada players have been found not guilty of sexual assault. Justice Carosia has been speaking for hours, spoke for hours, giving reasons for her decision. And the final verdict just came in about 20 minutes ago in the 5th hockey player there who's been listed. And she said at the start of the morning that she didn't find the complainant's evidence, quote, credible or reliable, and that the Crown did not prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And we are asking you, what impact do you think this case is having on the conversation around hockey culture in Canada? And let's go to Caitlin in Vancouver now. Hi, Caitlin. What do you think is the impact?
Hi. Much like your guest said previously, this is a sad day. It's quite sobering to hear the verdict. I think, I'm in Vancouver, but I grew up in Ontario, and I'm a young woman myself, and I grew up going to, social events and certain party situations with hockey players and my friends as well. And I think I can speak for at least my group of friends, but a lot of women when I say that it's very easy to believe that there is validity to what Em is saying. And I think ultimately the culture of hockey and the actions that people take and the way that people they converse amongst themselves. Your last guest said that there was a culture of secrecy, and I think there's complicity as well. Like they feel like they have permission to do these things, to give each other permission, and it is just really sad. And I hope that to the women listening and hearing the outcome of today, I really hope that it doesn't deter from women coming forward. That's my biggest fear, is that it's just another case of women not being believed. I also think it speaks to a much larger conversation about athletes in general. When you're an athlete, there are women around, and I think that just being an athlete doesn't give you permission to engage with women in a certain way. And I've never called into a radio station before, but today I felt really compelled to do so.
How do you see, if people, you talk about the culture among athletes, what would you like to see change among athletes?
Mm-hmm. I would like to see, more coaching, more conversation internally, and more rules and regulations. What that behavior and how that behavior could be monitored and measured, I'm not sure. But I, of course, with social media and everything happening online, it's really hard. It kind of takes a life of its own. But I really do think that there needs to be a shift in some capacity of holding people to, athletes to a certain standard when it comes to their interactions with women specifically. And it's very scary, to put it bluntly, to think that this is another instance where we're kind of reverting back, we're going backwards. It doesn't feel like progress here. And especially, with saying that the language used of not credible or reliable. I mean, those are strong words, and it's definitely, it has an impact in what we're hearing today.
Caitlin, I appreciate your calling, and I know this has not been an easy call to make. I appreciate you taking this step to join us. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, John.
You take care. And I do want to put out the numbers because this discussion and the coverage of the hockey trial does include details of alleged sexual assault, which may be disturbing and affect those who have experienced sexual violence. Help is available through Victim Link BC. They can be reached at 1-800-563-0808 toll free. And I am going to read just as well a quote from Justice Carosia, who said this as part of her judgment. It's not up to the judge to look at the morality or propriety of the conduct of any of the persons involved in these events. Quote, the function of this court is to determine whether the Crown could indeed determine each of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, so that from Justice Carosia today as well. We are going to pause and head into a TV ad break for people watching us on CBC television, but I'm going to go back to my guest as well for some thoughts around what at the players level, what can be done. So for our TV audience, we will pause for a break with you and continue our conversation on today's breaking news on the hockey sex assault trial. And Taylor McKee is with me, Associate Professor of Sport Management at Brock University. What did you take from Caitlin's call there? I asked her what could be done when it comes to athletes. We've talked about the leadership, but what about the culture among athletes?
I mean, it was an excellent call. It was it's deeply moving and deeply troubling because, again, I mean, you have a caller who's felt compelled to call into a radio show for the first time to speak this truth, and I think this is representative of a large, body of opinion that says, look, I feel like the result of this verdict could be to essentially make this process even more difficult. And again, I think it's just a window into the sort of world that again, not just women, but women, largely women, go through when navigating the sort of legal system. And again, that's a sort of, a twin topic adjacent to this, which is another horrifying sort of reality for many women. I think when it comes to the athletes themselves, one of the particularly infuriating parts about this situation is how well athletes understand the notion of accountability. I mean, when you speak about accountability and holding each other accountable, when it comes to their back check, when it comes to their defensive zone coverages, their responsibility, they are drilled from a very young age to hold each other accountable. It's sort of like the pinnacle of team, culture, being able to hold each other accountable. We don't want the coaches to be yelling at you all the time. You want to hold each other accountable. So you don't even necessarily need a different sort of lexicon to discuss this stuff. You can use sporting language. It, again, also makes me question sometimes whether or not it is a question of education, whether or not any of the things that you saw take place really need to be told was wrong. We see in the actual, whether it was the reporting done by the Globe and Mail or Rick Westhead or CBC, we saw some of those text messages exchanged. They clearly knew something maybe over the line, certainly not adjudicated as criminal, okay, we'll say that, but certainly not palatable, occurred. They knew it was wrong. It wasn't about, I wasn't educated enough, I didn't get enough training. I mean, they clearly knew. And again, it's worth noting, from these players, these are the pinnacle of hockey players. They have been receiving safe sport training already, many of which have already had for 10 years or more. I don't know necessarily if there's a seminar that we can put out there or a training session that we can give them that would tell them not to do some of the things you've heard in the trial. But again, to return to the words of the judge there, I mean, this was about adjudicating the facts at hand in this particular case, but there's no debating some of what occurred there. The question of whether or not it met the standard of criminality, okay. But again, the question of palatability, the question of whether or not this is something that teammates should be holding each other accountable for doing, that's the real question. So in terms of the athlete question, the athletes are already equipped to hold each other accountable. It's drilled into their very sports psyche. Let's start using that for good and not just secrecy.
Taylor McKee, it's very good to speak with you. I'm glad we fixed our connection issue. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, and I apologize for earlier.
No, not at all. Take care. It happens. Taylor McKee, Assistant Professor of Sport Management at Brock University. He specializes in masculinity and violence in hockey. And as you've been hearing, breaking news, all 5 former Hockey Canada players have been found not guilty of sexual assault. We are going to break for a news update, and we have David waiting on the line. So we'll go to David to comment on this and what impact this case has had on hockey culture and the conversations we have around hockey. So we'll go to David right after the CBC News update. It is 12:31 now. Let's go to that with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. 3 people are dead in Maple Ridge in what BC's Police Oversight Agency describes as an apparent murder-suicide. The Independent Investigations Office says the RCMP told the watchdog that 2 people were dead before officers arrived. One person subsequently died of what appeared to be a self-inflicted injury. A remote-controlled piece of equipment is now digging away at a wall of rocks and debris to try to free 3 workers trapped at the Red Chris mine in northwestern BC. The mine operator says the wall of rocks is between 20 and 30 meters long and up to 8 meters high. The drillers were trapped on Tuesday after 2 separate rock falls, but they have enough air, food, and water in case the ordeal drags on. And as we've been hearing on the show, all 5 former World Junior Hockey players on trial in Ontario have been found not guilty of sexual assault. Michael McLeod, Carter Hart, Alex Fermenton, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote were accused of sexually assaulting a young woman in a London, Ontario hotel room. The judge said she did not find the complainant's testimony credible or reliable. And now the forecast on the north coast. Cloudy this afternoon with a high of 14. Highs reaching 22 with some sunshine and a chance of thunderstorms in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 22 as well. Highs getting up to 30 with lots of sunshine in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, sunny with a high of 32. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, sunny this afternoon with highs up to 26 inland. And that's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Rob. That is Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. We have lost our connection with David, who was on the line in Vancouver. My apologies, David. If we are able to reconnect with you, we'll put you on if there is time, okay? So thanks for your call. Now, yesterday on the program, in the wake of that Coldplay concert and the couple who unfortunately became internet famous, we asked for your thoughts on internet notoriety. And Tammy wrote us from Hope. I don't agree with the premise that just because I'm out in public, it is okay for strangers to film or take pictures of me without my permission and then post them on to the internet. Who has decided that this is the automatic default in our society? How about if instead there was a strong expectation that citizens with cameras have a responsibility to manage this power by being respectful, thoughtful, and considerate of fellow citizens' rights to be in public spaces without being surveilled? It could just as easily happen to you. Human beings have the ability and the right to work through their own life problems without being infringed upon. If it has nothing to do with you, mind your own business. You are not being helpful in any way. William writes, as an objective observer, social media has had a significant impact on public behavior, often shaping interactions, perceptions, and even emotional responses in offline settings. This influence stems from various factors, including the curated nature of online content, the pursuit of validation, and the spread of information or misinformation. I find myself being more guarded with an increased awareness of those around me who is using their cell phone and potentially capturing images. That was a really interesting conversation yesterday. Thank you very much for your emails. bctoday@cbc.ca is our address. $12:35 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, it is National Drowning Prevention Week with the message of being, quote, safer together, which means not swimming alone and wearing a life jacket. There were 98 accidental drownings in BC last year. and drowning deaths in BC last year. According to the BC Coroner Service, the deadliest spots in BC include Okanagan Lake and the Fraser River. I'm going to talk about that. And these safety reminders do come at a time when so many of us are spending time in the waters around the province. So we're asking you, what is needed to prevent more drownings in BC's lakes, rivers, and along the coast? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca, or you can comment on our TikTok Live. Linnea Grace is with the Lifesaving Society's BC and Yukon branch, the executive director there. Linnea, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for welcoming me to your show today.
It's a good week to have this conversation because July certainly is the height of people heading out and enjoying the waters, but also the month in which we see the most drownings. What are your biggest concerns right now?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And that's why we have National Drowning Prevention Week occurring in the third week of July, because we typically, unfortunately, see the highest rates of drowning. So we really want to make sure people are taking water smart action before they recreate in, on, and around the water this summer. So as you said, we are safer together. So we want to make sure that people are swimming with a buddy, that they are choosing to swim in lifeguard supervised pools and beaches. That parents are actively supervising their kids while near the water. And that includes not just, at the lake or the pool or the beach, but also in the bathtub. And of course, as you said, wearing your life jacket. We always say you'd never get in your car and not put on your seatbelt. So don't get on a boat without zipping and clipping your PFD.
Yeah, the main message there, right? And that's regardless of your skill.
That's right. Regardless of your age or ability, we all need to ensure that we are wearing PFDs or life jackets when we are boating. And that includes stand-up paddleboarding as well.
Okay. And what about the fact that, yes, we are surrounded in and among many bodies of water. And so what we have learned from the BC Coroner Service, who have tracked drowning deaths over 10 years, found that the Fraser River had by far the most number of deaths. What makes the Fraser River so risky?
Well, it's moving water. There are a lot of risks associated with that. It's fast moving in parts. People overestimate their abilities, underestimate the currents. But by far, people who are drowning in rivers often never intend to go in the water in the first place.
Yes, tell me about that. What is that? Why does that occur?
Yeah, so it could occur with somebody accidentally falling into the water, maybe slipping on rocks. Unfortunately, we've seen some instances in some years where vehicles have accidentally swerved into water, unfortunately. People have, jumped in to save a pet or very unfortunately retrieve an item or a ball that's fallen into the water. And sometimes you need to ensure that you're prioritizing your own safety before risking your life for something like a Frisbee.
It is also a working river. Are there any statistics around industries and falls into the river related to them?
I don't have statistics on that on me right now, but I'm certain that we could obtain those from Transport Canada.
Okay. We do have an email here from Doug who writes, when kids can't get swimming lessons and adults aren't getting tickets for drinking at the beach, what did we expect? Either or both of these need government action to correct. This is not an unsolvable problem. It's one we don't want to solve. Doug, thank you very much. Two big points there. And one is swimming lessons, which we know we talk about all the time leading into the summer, how hard it can be to even find swimming lessons or sign up for swimming lessons. How much has that problem been addressed? Has it improved at all this summer?
Sure. Well, I want to touch on a few things. I'm really happy to see that the pools throughout British Columbia and Yukon are offering more swim lessons than they were pre-pandemic. So we've seen that rise again. We certified over 4,000 swim instructors in BC and Yukon in 2024. And 6,025 lifeguards. That's more than we've ever had in the province when it comes to lifeguard certification per year. So that's good news for the pools because that will help them offer more lessons. We have seen an increase, but I hear the parents out there. It is difficult. And so, you mentioned the government. Something that we would like to see is swim curriculum introduced in the school system, in the BC curriculum as a requirement for elementary students, or at the very minimum, Swim to Survive, which is a program that teaches people to survive an unexpected fall into water, how to tread water for a minute, and swim to shore for safety. So it's not about stroke progression, it's about survival.
Right. So you're not trying to become a competitive swimmer, but trying to learn the skills that you will need in order to survive. And what about those swimming classes in the curriculum? I know that there have been a couple of districts that have experimented with that. What progress is being made there?
Yeah, so it really varies per region. One thing about, us pushing for it to be in the curriculum is that it means that I would level that playing field for students, no matter where they live, their background, their socioeconomic status. They would be able to access swim lessons in elementary, ideally, doing Swim to Survive in grade 3 and having lessons throughout elementary school.
Okay, let's address the other part of David's email there, which was drinking at beaches. And we know that alcohol and drugs are a factor. How much of an issue is that?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we've seen in the coroner's report the stat that 40% of these accidental drownings had alcohol or substance use as a factor involved. And so, we urge the public not to mix swimming and boating and drinking. So if you are enjoying a beverage on the beach, stay on the beach. Don't go out on the water. It can impair your judgment. And unfortunately, we've seen some very tragic accidents occur this year with folks that were impaired while driving boats.
Yeah. Absolutely. Linnea Grace is with me, who's with the Lifesaving Society of B.C., Lifesaving Society's B.C. and Yukon branch, and the executive director there. We are asking you what's needed to prevent drownings in B.C. What are some safety lessons that you have learned in BC's lakes and rivers and on the coast? 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690. We are also taking your emails, bctoday@cbc.ca, and your comments on our TikTok Live. Keith is our next caller in Vancouver. Hi, Keith. Your thoughts on preventing drownings?
Yeah, two quick ones. Obviously, swim lessons has already been discussed, but also swim lessons as an adult. I've been lucky to know how to swim pretty much all my life, but if you're an adult and you don't know how to swim and you're avoiding the water and this and that, there's no shame or embarrassment with taking lessons as an adult. Just figure it out and go for it. There's all kinds of options. I think with COVID it's been a bit tougher to get into lessons, but it's such an amazing skill to have. You can swim rivers and oceans, and I've been lucky to go up to Whistler and swim in the ocean, 3 different lakes and a river all in one day, and they're just all so different. So it's such an amazing experience, and being able to do that's pretty amazing. The other thing is knowing what a riptide is. If you're on a regular beach with lifeguards, pretty much there's probably going to be no riptide. But I was caught in one in Mexico, and I didn't know what it was. At first, I was coming out of the water, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. It was only at my ankles, and the power of it. I got really close to the shore, and then I'd get pulled back a foot, and I'd go in 2 and out 1, and I was about 3 feet total from the shore when somebody had to pull me out, and I didn't know what it was. And since then, this is 25 years later, there's some really good videos on YouTube and just explaining what to do. Don't fight it. Let it take you, and swim to the left or the right. It's really quite interesting. But at the time, I thought, oh, this is just kind of, whatever, no big deal. But if I fought that, I get tired and I drown. It's quite simple. So learning what a riptide is really invaluable.
Must have been frightening, Keith, and given your
it's crazy.
Your level of skill as well. I'll put that to Linnea, because I think that's an important lesson that you've learned and shared with us. And your point on adult swimming lessons as well. I second that. I'm an adult who's taken swimming lessons,
Nice.
and certainly very valuable. So I appreciate your point. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's Keith in Vancouver. Yeah, Linnea. So there's someone who has swum all his life and was caught in a riptide in Mexico, and really learned a lesson there. What can you tell us about the unexpected, especially when you're in the ocean?
Sure. And, as he said, he is an experienced swimmer and this happened to him. And so, that's why we say it's really important to swim at those supervised beaches between the lifeguard flags while the lifeguards are on duty. When you are also traveling in foreign countries where you may not as be familiar with the surf or the beaches, do your homework. Again, try to swim in beaches that have lifeguards on duty. There's excellent programs worldwide for lifeguard certification, and they've got great folks supervising beaches in various locations. So that's what we recommend. Pay attention to the signage at the beach. If it says "Do not swim here," then trust that information and choose a safer spot. As any when you're planning a trip or a swim. In a natural body of water, do your homework. So know before you go. Check the weather, check the conditions, ensure you have the proper safety equipment. Have you told somebody where you're going? Do you have a spotter from the beach? All of those things can help prevent drownings.
And what about if you are caught in a riptide? What are some best practices there then?
Yeah, so with riptides, it's really important to remember that you shouldn't try to swim directly back to shore because it is too powerful for you. So swimming parallel to the shore is what is recommended, and eventually that will bring you in and help somebody rescue you as well.
That's exactly what Keith was saying as well in terms of swimming left to right as opposed to trying to go back. Thanks again for the call, Keith. And Rebecca is on the line next now in Salmon Arm to talk about swimming safety and what's needed to prevent drownings in BC. 1-800-825-5950 is our line around the province. Locally, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Hi, Rebecca. Thanks very much for joining us.
Hello. So your guest is hitting so many good points. I'm very glad you got her on. The first thing I'm going to mention, we're mentioning about possible mandatory swimming lessons for elementary school students. So there's a little community beside Salmon Arm in Silver Creek. Our PAC pays for swimming lessons because of the fact that not everybody can pay for swimming lessons. Not every family can afford it.
Yeah.
And because we are surrounded by the Shuswap Lake and the Salmon River, there are so many opportunities for children to drown. And we want to make sure that our kids in our school at least have the skills, the swim to survive skills. And your guest also mentioned about, jumping in water after a frisbee or a pet or whatever. My husband used to be on the local search and rescue, and several years ago, unfortunately, they had to do or try to do a body retrieval out of the Shuswap Lake for two gentlemen who jumped overboard of their boat for a hat, no life jacket, and their wives watched them drown from the boat.
That's horrific. Yeah.
It's just silly over a hat. So, but again, just being aware and being smart. And could your guest, is there a website that people can go to be reminded of all this wonderful information that she is sharing?
Yeah, Rebecca, we'll certainly ask her for that. There is a website, I'm sure, and I just want to thank you for your call as well. A PAC raising money so that swimming lessons can be provided for students in the school. Way to go to you and your PAC for doing that. But that again goes to the equity issues around. Not every family can afford swim lessons. And as well, the lesson that you shared there from your husband during his time on search and rescue. Thanks so much for the call, Rebecca.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And yes, Linnea, please do share the online resources that are available.
Sure. And first, I just want to applaud the action that the PAC has taken in Silver Creek as well. That's really commendable. We have lots of water safety education tips and information on swim lessons, life-saving and lifeguarding training programs, boating safety tips, etc., all on our Lifesaving Society website. It's lifesaving.bc.ca.
Lifesaving lifesaving.bc.ca. There you go. And so that's the online resource, the website for the Lifesaving Society. Lots of comments on TikTok as well. Let's just go through them now. 10 Mile writes, yes, listen to lifeguards, follow signs. I agree. Fired My Doc posts on TikTok, make sure you are fully boosted before swimming. I think that means a PFD, but would that personal flotation device? Yeah. Colin writes, there's no buoyancy off fresh water, so it's harder to float. Okay, a lesson about fresh water there versus the ocean. Lucy writes, absolutely. Why is this not mandated, like seat belts, especially in your boats? And referring again to personal flotation devices. I want to put this post to you on TikTok, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Linnea. 10 Mile writes, Okanagan Lake, this is where people are jumping from cliffs, and it has the most drowning this year. Not many just swim. So ban cliff jumping in Okanagan Lake, and you solve the problem. Yeah, how big an issue is cliff jumping?
Unfortunately, we've seen tragic deaths from cliff jumping in recent years. There is no safe way to cliff jump. And so, we've seen cases where people are strong swimmers, but the impact is, breaking their backs or injuring them or causing death due to the height. We've seen cases where, unfortunately, people have felt peer pressured to cliff jump, and they've jumped in and injured or unfortunately killed themselves in that manner. Even for people who didn't know how to swim, who felt peer pressured. So it is, it is not a safe activity. I do want to draw attention to something fantastic we've seen recently this week, and very timely for National Drowning Prevention Week. And that is the efforts that North Vancouver has recently taken to put in new signage around Lynn Canyon to appeal to a younger audience in sharing like preventative safety messages against cliff jumping. So definitely worth checking out.
Yes, that coverage is also on CBC's website. Officials have put up signs hoping to deter Lynn Canyon cliff jumpers. And so some of the signs are kind of aimed at a younger audience. I went a little bit cheeky. Spoiler alert, your viral jump ends in the hospital. So trying to get at younger demographic there. Is there a way to ban cliff jumping outright, or is it just about education?
You'd have to speak to different municipalities for that. But I don't think we're ever going to completely erase cliff jumping as much as we'd like to. People are going to make their choices. What we can do is educate the public so they choose not to make those decisions that could put them or others in harm's way.
Let's take some more calls here. Thanks for all your posts on TikTok. Jan is joining us from Langford. Hi there, Jan.
Yeah, hi there. So when I took bronze medallion back in '77 through the Royal Lifesaving Society of Canada, there's two things you'll learn. One is have something to throw, and then the second thing is you have nothing to throw. You have to have something to reach. That keeps you out of the water. So things to throw. Just watch a lifeguard. What do lifeguards have in their hands at all times? They got something they can throw. So watch lifeguards. See what they do. Don't watch Baywatch. So you want something to throw because you don't want to go in the water because you'll have, instead of one dead, you'll have two dead. So don't go in the water. And if you have nothing to throw, including a life jacket, you might have a life jacket, throw that. Then have something to reach with, a stick, a hiking stick. Some people have the walking sticks. Mm-hmm. So that way you do go in the water, but you're reaching, and you keep yourself as safe as possible because, like that one fellow said, even 2 inches of riptide, it took him off his feet. Mm-hmm. So the key here is look at what lifeguards do and have a plan of action because you never know what's going to happen. Have something to throw that floats and have something to reach with.
Yeah.
That's it.
Jan, thank you so much for that. Yeah, if you're trying to help, that might be, the better option. Linnea, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. He's making excellent points here. When you are boating, making sure that you have a throw rope. So they often come in a neat packed bag. And when you throw the bag, the rope unravels. And that can be a safety tool. You can use a life jacket as he messaged, always carry an extra. A stick can work as well. One thing that we recommend at any beach is for districts and regions and municipalities to have public access life rings. So this would be a stand that would have a life ring accessible to anyone just in case of an emergency.
Okay, that's a really interesting option there. Victor is our next caller now in Brackendale. Hi, Victor. Your thoughts on what we can do to prevent drownings?
What people take for granted is never turn your back on the ocean. Twice I've been hit by rogue waves, once in Hawaii, once in Iceland. And in Iceland, I almost drowned. It pretty well washes all the gravel out from under your feet and drags you out. I've got a friend who's a paramedic, got hit in Mexico, ended up a quadriplegic because he turned his back to the ocean. So, and there was also an incident in Tofino a few years back where an older couple was sitting on a log. Rogue wave came in, put the log right over top of him as the tide's coming in, and his wife couldn't pull him in, but luckily she got somebody to rescue him. But don't turn your back on the ocean.
Victor,
You
thank
never
you.
know.
Yeah, you never
Thank
know.
you.
Keep that awareness. Thank you so much. I only have 30 seconds, but I really would love to hear from Christine in Fort St. John. Hi, Christine. You took lessons later in life, and you're hoping for some classes for international adult learners.
Yeah, I'm a late learner. Oh, it just about makes me cry. And I really appreciate our staff at the pool. And in the north here, we have so many enrichments with the people who come here to study, and they stay from India and the Philippines specifically, but also now the Ukraine. And they're wonderful at getting their kids in lessons. But the pool here is great. We're going to have, when it reopens in September, a lesson that I can sponsor for adult international beginners, like those people that they've grown up around water, like in the Philippines, but so many don't know how to swim.
You know what?
And
I'm one of those people, Christine. So I appreciate the efforts that you're making. And we know that international students are one of the demographics to be concerned about. So lessons for them. Thank you so much for your time, Linnea.
Thank you so much for having me on the show and sharing this important messaging about drowning prevention.